Okay, so first question was, how far in the clinical trials are you for Histogen's HSC complex?
To date, we have successfully completed a proof of concept trial with 26 patients, as well as a phase 1/2 trial with 56 patients. In addition, Dr. Craig Ziering has a physician IND in which he's enrolled 10 patients, 5 men, 5 women, to look at the efficacy with multiple treatments of HSC. We have filed a IND at the end of October with the FDA to start a phase 1 dose study in women. And we are filing before the end of the year an IND for a phase 2B dosing study in men here in the United States, looking to enroll a total of 90 for 80 evaluable.
Okay. So you mentioned a phase 1, so that's like starting over pretty much.
Well, that's for women, not for
Okay.
men. The men is going into a phase 2B dosing, which is the final step before final phase 3.
Yeah.
With women, we have only 5 patients, and the results were so phenomenal that we wanted to do a 24-patient study to see if we can repeat this with a variety of female hair loss, both stress-induced, hormonally induced, chemically induced, as we saw with Dr. Ziering's. So we really had not planned on a separate study for women, but the results were so amazing, we said, let's go for the phase 1. In addition, we have a physician out of Long Beach Memorial who is going to be submitting a physician IND for the treatment of Taxol-induced alopecia in women with late-stage ovarian cancer. He's looked at our data extensively, and he believes that a prophylactic use of the material for these cancer patients might be very efficacious. Okay. So lots going on in 2016.
Awesome. For some of us, we've been mentioning that 2016 will be the end of hair loss. I'm hoping that's true. Obviously, a phase 2B trial will probably take about a year, correct? Or
so if we start enrolling in January, we will have our 18-week primary efficacy point in the spring.
Okay.
That will give us a strong indication of when we could start the phase 3, so we could start actually at that time planning for our phase 3 IND submission, getting the centers together, etc. While we wait for the final 1-year time point. But the week 18 is really the critical point in that study for us.
So by the end of 2016 or early 2017, you could go for the final phase 3 trial.
That's right.
And then once that's over, by the end of 2017, you'll need to get the approval from the FDA, so they'll give you the green light, and then however long it takes them to give you the green light, we can actually come in and say, take my money, give me hair.
That's right. And actually, outside of the United States, there are a number of countries where we can go straight into a phase 3. We are in late-stage negotiations with a partner for Mexico.
Oh, great.
We're going to have those meetings in early December with the FDA equivalent for Mexico. But it looks highly likely that we can go straight into a 300 to 500 patient trial, which the partners are going to fund for Mexico. So it's highly likely that the product will be available in Mexico 18 to 24 months before the United States.
Wow. Have you looked into Japan at all? They've got some new deregulations now.
Yes.
For stem cell based therapies, and I thought this is an exciting time for all of the biotechs here to take advantage of and maybe roll out a expedited treatment.
Absolutely. We actually had a meeting last October with the director for regenerative medicine of the PMDA. By coincidence, he was the person who approved my former cell-based product, Dermagraft, for diabetic ulcers, so he was familiar with myself and with fibroblasts secreted and fibroblast-based products themselves. I think that for going ahead in Japan, we're really going to need to have a Japanese partner. It became clear to us during that meeting that although the new regulations apply across the board, to have a partner based in Japan will truly help, grease the skids for getting the products into the clinic and to market. So we have 2 different discussions going on right now, and based on how they go, we'd love to be able to go straight into a phase 3 in Japan in 2016.
That is awesome. That's definitely huge news for the entire hair loss community for us. We had no idea what was going on with Histogen. Everyone's been pretty quiet, but Histogen, Replicel, Folica as well have been pretty silent on news, and we were just dying to know. So this is definitely going to cause a major wave of excitement and conversation for us. Thank you for that. The next question on the list is, does HSC have any relation to hypoxia?
Hypoxia is a very, very critical part of producing HSC. In 2007, we made the discovery that if you take newborn fibroblasts and grow them under conditions that mimic the embryonic environment, so very low oxygen, 3% instead of normal 21%, and suspension cultures, within 48 hours, the cells start expressing genes that are associated with embryonic stem cells. They also make cell surface proteins that are associated with embryonic stem cells. Very importantly, too, the SOX21 gene is extremely upregulated, which of course is important in the stem cells of hair follicles. And the cells start to secrete large amounts of growth factors that are known to be important in hair stimulation. So under the hypoxic conditions, we have an increased production of follistatin and KGF, VEGF, which are the key ingredients for the mechanism of action of HSC, but also a number of other growth factors that are secreted which have been associated with hair growth. So hypoxia is really key.
Okay. The next question on the list was, other than capital money, what in your view is the biggest obstacle into getting HSC treatment to the market? There's been some speculation that there are problems with controlling cell treatments to create good cells versus bad cells.
Well, I think it's really important to know that the Histogen team is really uniquely qualified with cell-based products. At our former company, Advanced Tissue Sciences, my research and process development and manufacturing team, we got 3 cell-based products through FDA approval based on the same fibroblast that we start with now, as well as a cosmetic product to the market. So we really understand controlling the cells, controlling the environment of cell growth. Now, it's very true that with a number of cells, including stem cells, when you inject the cells into the body, they could either be pro-inflammatory or anti-inflammatory. So it's hard to control what they're going to do once they're in the body. Because of this, we have made the concerted decision to not have any cells in our final product, but instead just use the cell-secreted materials. We have controlled closed bioreactor systems that continuously monitor the cell metabolism, looking at the different types of cell parameters to make sure that they stay in their undifferentiated state, and that we know exactly how much of these important growth factors they're making. We have strong release criteria, both bioassays as well as ELISAs, to show lot-to-lot reproducibility. So a lot of effort, time and money has put behind this, but since my team has done this before so many times, we're highly confident we have a very reproducible product.
Awesome. The next question on the list was, what do you say to people who say that even hair that is regrown through HSC will still be susceptible to DHT and PGD2 production?
Well, quick thoughts are that HSC would help ameliorate the process by stimulating or maintaining the hair follicle stem cells and progenitor cells required for hair growth. DHT has been seen to act as an upstream promoter of PDG2 and synthetase expression and activity. PDG2 then shuts down the division of the hair follicle stem cells, particularly during catagen, thereby inhibiting hair growth. As usual, it's not entirely understood. HSC could help preserve or even inhibit PDG2 expression and its effects from occurring and prevent regression of the hair follicle. One of the unique mechanisms of HSC is that it blocks other inhibitory mechanisms, such as follistatin being an antagonist to BMP, which is primarily involved with the hair follicle miniaturization. So we also, by being able to go and provide these antagonists as well as stimulatory factors such as KGF and VEGF, we really do believe that we're going to be able to help counter the effects of the DHT.
Do you think that HSC alongside finasteride could produce even better results? Or potentially alongside with cetipaprint, which George Katsouralis is working on for blocking PGD2?
You know, there's no reason to think that the product couldn't even be further improved by the addition of products that have synergistic mechanisms of actions. So, I mean, there's certainly anything that could further block bad factors could, I think, potentially improve the HSC activity.
A lot of referral members actually try and do a kitchen sink approach to tackling hair loss. So they're willing to do everything and anything all at once. So in the future, I would imagine that once these products come out to market, I myself, for example, would probably go with every route I could find and see how much hair growth I could get. And I imagine that this will be also the case for other hair loss sufferers, which is great.
Yeah, I think the important thing is that we really want to make sure that we can maintain.
I had to call Henrik.
We really want to maintain our strong safety profile. We have had no serious adverse reactions in any of the patients treated. Some of the hair products on the market do have some serious side effects, some of them irreversible. So what we really want to do is make sure that if we're coupled with other therapies, we continue to have an extremely safe profile. That's
another major selling point for us because other than minoxidil, which has fairly mild side effects, some people have mentioned bags under their eyes and increased heart rate. That's all I could really find. And the shedding, of course, the initial shedding. Finasteride is far more dangerous for us, so it's a major blessing to have a product that doesn't have any side effects and actually gives far superior results than either minoxidil or finasteride, or even both combined. Mm-hmm. So this is definitely a positive news for us. The next question is, have you seen any correlation or is there any reason to believe that this treatment is more effective on younger patients than older patients or vice versa? In both our pilot as well as the phase 1-2 trial, we've actually seen the best results in men over 40. So men between 40 and 60. So we have good results in men in 20s and 30s, but unlike other treatments on the market, specifically minoxidil and Propecia, the absolute best results in both trials were men between 40 and 60. I wish I was 40. Okay, that's good news. Although unfortunately most of our readers are 35 and younger. Well, but see, one of the important differentiators is that many people start in their 20s and 30s losing hair in their temporal recession area. There is no treatment on the market currently for temporal recession. Neither the minoxidil nor Propecia are effective there. We have shown extremely good efficacy in both, well, actually 3 clinical trials, if you include Dr. Ziering's, in the temporal recession area in both men and women. So I believe for men in their 20s and 30s, we're going to have a real benefit because of the efficacy we see there. Awesome. That helps me a lot. We'll make sure you're part of the next trial. If you need a guinea pig as well, I'm willing to sign up. I wish I could. I'm in Canada. I don't know how that works, actually, to take part in the trial. So one of the greatest parts about hair treatments is that whether or not it's a clinical trial, like the ones we're going to have in the United States or Mexico, or when the product's on the market, it's part of the whole aesthetic medical tourism. So people, especially for a 1 or 2 time treatment, can fly anywhere to be able to get the treatment itself. Do you think that the treatment will work better if you go for consistent injections? Let's say once every 3 months or once every month, or however often, you feel like you might want to do it. So our upcoming clinical trials are just going to have a larger amount of doses of what we showed in the phase 1-2 trial. So we're going to have 20 doses at week 0, 20 doses at week 6, with primary efficacy at 18. Remember in our previous trials, we had excellent new hair growth, both terminal and total, at the primary endpoint, but we continued to grow more and more hair over a 1-year period of time, and that hair persisted for at least 2 years. So we're really looking for this to be a 2-time treatment. Dr. Ziering has been using multiple treats, so every 6 weeks for a total of 4 to 5 treatments, and he's seen some pretty extreme results, wonderful results. But I really do think that our goal is to be able to have 2 treatments, 6 weeks apart, ultimately a phase 3 having potentially 50 injections at week 0, 50 at week 6. What we want to do is capture the hair follicles in a pre-anagen stage. That's when the product is most effective. And because the hair follicles are asynchronous on our head, those that don't respond on week 0, 6 weeks later, have been shown that they will respond at that time. That is an interesting point, actually. That's definitely something we haven't taken into consideration, because we always were under the impression that as long as the treatment goes in, it should work. And we didn't take into account of the hair cycle phases.
Yes. Well, in our product is very important.
Okay. So that definitely is an eye-opener for us. The next question is, we know that CD34 and CD200 progenitor cells are lacking greatly and may be the missing link for proper terminal hair growth. Does HSC increase the count of these cells? And if so, could a constant upregulation of these cells in thin involved areas bring back follicles to their full original size?
So all the information we really have is in vitro work using various stains on hairs that are basically hairs remaining from hair transplants. And there we've been able to see the stimulation of the CD34 particularly. One of the active products in HSC is stem cell factor, which is known to have very strong activity on CD34. And so we believe that we're going to be able to stimulate these cells and be able to have a very nice proliferation of these stem cells and prolonged hair growth.
Awesome. So that's huge. That's one of the first products on the market that will be able to do that, if not the first. There is tamoxidine that works via hypoxia as well, but the results have been not great enough to say that it's a major cosmetic change. So this is really good. Is there a rough estimate of how much the procedure will cost per injection? I mentioned injection here, but I think what I meant to say was per treatment, since there are multiple injections per session.
Right. Well, it's really going to be for our marketing partner to decide that. What we've been able to do is develop a manufacturing process where we have excellent gross margins. Currently our gross margins are 80%. So we really want to be able to come up with a treatment, say 50 injections at baseline, 50 injections 6 weeks later for the full treatment. That will be a fraction of what a current hair transplant would be.
Oh, wow.
So
this is going to be more than affordable.
Maybe a couple thousand instead of 15 to 20,000. But our marketing partner is really going to be looking at that based on the final results. And we really want to be able to bring this therapy to as many people as needed, not just men with androgenic alopecia, but women with a variety of reasons for their hair loss, and people of a variety of economic standings.
That's excellent news. I know that we have a few members on our forum. There's one particular young girl from Norway who's devastated with her hair loss, and I can tell that she's struggling. And I can only imagine how it is for other sufferers. I mean, men have it rough as well, but women, since it happens so rarely, it has to hit them very, very hard. Actually,
there's quite a large number of women who have hair loss.
Yes, I believe it's up to 40% of all hair loss sufferers. The main difference is that they never get to the point of a full Norwood 7 baldness, but, well, not never, there are some extreme cases, but it's mostly extreme thinning, and that's tough because you could never stylize your hair the way you want to, ideally. And even I know that you just don't feel like yourself anymore, and there's a great lack of confidence in yourself to.
Well, if you look at some of the photographs in my presentation that I'm going to show today, patients that Dr. Ziering treated, you're going to see that some of these women had very extensive hair loss, particularly in their temporal recession area, very common in women, as well as a stripe down the middle of their scalp. We've been able to be effective in both of those, and so we are really excited about starting this phase 1 trial. I can't tell you how many emails I get every week from both men and women, but the ones particularly from the women who are saying, I will not leave the house, especially like the teenagers and people in their 20s that you I'm sure hear from all the time.
Yeah, she's got the same problem. She quit school, she doesn't go out, she just, her life is not ruined, but it feels like that for her,
Yeah.
and the burden is so great that she just cannot overcome it.
Well, I mean, this ovarian cancer trial I was telling you about that a physician's going to put an IND for, when he first came to me, he said, Gail, I really want to use your product. I've studied the data. I believe that we can go, and by injecting HSC a few days before chemotherapy, that we can help bring all of the hair follicles into an active anagen stage. And so once the stem cells stop proliferating and you have a mature hair, the Taxol won't have its effect. And I said, really? I said, these women had a lot more to worry about than hair loss. And he looked me in the eye and said, the first question they ask with their diagnosis, am I going to have chemotherapy? The second is, will I lose my hair? And 100% of women, you lose 100% of their hair on Taxol. And they've done a tremendous amount of studies that say, when you look in the mirror and you don't look sick, you do so much better on your therapy.
That's true that you mentioned the chemotherapy part along with hair loss. There's been a lot of discussions from many of our forum members trying to paint the picture of how serious hair loss can be for many people. Is that chemotherapy patients, their number one grief going through chemotherapy is always the loss of their hair.
Yes.
That's always their greatest burden. It's not the pain of it all. It's just not looking like yourself and feeling like yourself. So that definitely is a strong point for talking point, I suppose. Interesting, actually. Yesterday I had a short conversation with Dr. Jimenez from I think University of Miami here. He mentioned, this is kind of off topic, but there was wounding done in dogs, I believe, that went under chemotherapy, and one of them has had a wound just before the chemotherapy, but where the wound was, the hair remained intact during the chemotherapy. So something you might want to talk to him after that.
Sure.
It might be a
well, I mean, Dr. Costarellis has spent years looking at the connection between wound healing. That's Follicle's whole premise, really.
Yes.
Wound healing and the ability to go and induce new hair follicles from stem cells in the wounded area. So I think we're learning a lot from each other, and the complexity of how a hair follicle forms and how to maintain the hair growth as well. But I'll certainly speak to him.
Yeah, he was very open about a lot of the things that we were talking about yesterday. Second question is actually, before I go to the next one, you mentioned that phase 1 will now be for women, but do you think that HSC can be used sort of off-label by doctors mentioning to have women go under the treatment regardless, or will it only be strictly for men for the time being? Can they have a off-label use, so to speak?
Well, I mean, just take Botox as an example. Botox was approved for something very different for a very small market, something very different than wrinkles. But doctors are allowed to use a discretion to use a product that's approved among various populations that they think it's safe to use on. So it's really going to be up to the physicians, once HSC is approved for men, to see what other indications they think that it's going to show efficacy in.
Okay. The next question was, can patients choose how often they receive injections?
So, I mean, I believe, yes. It's really going to be tied to the labeling that we're going to be able to get with the product itself. If, in fact, our phase 3 is going to be 50 injections at baseline and 50 injections at week 6, most likely, the doctors are going to have to stay within that parameters. Now, patients could potentially receive fewer injections per treatment and just have more treatments, because certainly once you show the safety of 100 injections, it's going to be up to the physician and the patient to decide how to best deliver those 100 injections.
I think many of us will go for frequent sessions, only because we want as much hair as possible.
Sure.
Or fill in the entire bald scalp. Do you think that's possible, actually, going from a full Norwood 7 down to a Norwood 1 with enough injections?
No, I don't know. I mean, we're studying up through a 4B. That's where we are. We will probably do some additional physician-based studies with the more severe Norwood scale. But right now we really want to be able to capture the majority of the population. I don't know whether if someone's been bald for 15 years, we're going to be effective. I do know, as I said, men who have been losing their hair for the last 20 years responded extremely well in both of our studies. But that's going to be a separate study. That would probably slow us down getting to the market, so we'll do that as a separate focus. That being said, I have been extremely encouraged by Dr. Costarellis' discovery that men who have been bald for decades have as many stem cells in their scalp that could be stimulated to become hair follicles as a man with a full head of hair.
Yeah, the last year's presentation in South Korea, you mentioned and pretty much confirmed during on one of the slides that the stem cells in the dermal papilla are still there. They're just so miniaturized. They're unable to grow a hair. So I think the trick is to get the cells back into the dermal papilla and make it as large as it used to be, and then it'll grow the hair fiber relative to its size.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we'd love to look at it. It's not going to be the quickest way to market, but we'd love to be able to do a separate clinical study specifically on the more advanced balding.
Okay. The next question was, when will HSC be available to consumers? I suppose with the clinical trials that we spoke about earlier, pretty much answers it.
Yes.
2018.
And again, if we get the green light to go ahead and straight into a phase 3 in Mexico and perhaps one Asian country, it'll be quicker outside of the United States.
Potentially 2017?
Potentially by the end of, yep.
It's going to be a good year. This one's actually, I suppose, a more general question. What exactly is HSC made of? Some people are using general terms like growth factors, but what are they?
So, absolutely. You have to think of HSC as a replacement therapy. So, by tricking the fibroblasts into thinking that they're stem cells again, the stem cells secrete a variety of soluble growth factors, many of which have been shown in scientific publications to be key to inducing and maintaining hair growth. So when we talk about HSC, we talk about 3 growth factors in particular. Follistatin, whose main job is to inhibit the blocking activity of BMP. KGF, also known as FGF7, and once the stem cells start dividing, the KGF causes the keratinocytes to migrate into the hair shaft and convert a vellus into a terminal hair or create a new hair. Oh. And the VEGF, which is increasing the circulation to the hair follicle, which is so important and is basically how you see minoxidil and other products like that work. But in addition, we have other growth factors secreted by these cells that have been shown in the literature to be very key in hair follicle growth and hair stimulation. Those include other angiogenic factors. So besides VEGF, we have large quantities of HGF. As I said before, we have stem cell factor, which acts on the CD34 cells themselves. We have TGF-beta1, which in the literature has been shown to be important as well. So it's a very interesting product because we basically are bringing back to your scalp all the growth factors that you were able to make yourself when you were growing your hair normally. So we're just replacing what you no longer make.
Do those factors stay for an extended period of time? From the photos that we've seen before, is that the results remained and improved for the next 12 months?
No. So the studies we've done in animals show that within 30 minutes, there's no more of the product within your system. But we don't care that the product stays. What we want to do is to have the product start lifting the BMP block off, starting to stimulate your follicle stem cells to start proliferating. And once that happens, you're going to be able to have the entire cascade of events that will lead to the new hair growth. I think that the reason we have seen the improved effects even between the primary efficacy in our first trial at 12 weeks, so we have more and more hair up to 1 year, and then a persistence of hair, is that we really are stimulating these stem cells. And the product doesn't have to be there continuously to be able to do that. It starts this effect. It's like a domino effect that will continue over time.
Okay. When Histogen does become available, where will it be available? Do we go to a clinic licensed by Histogen, similar to Replicell, or will you have your own clinics and we'll have to go to ourselves?
Well, actually, neither. We just follow the Botox model. I mean, our product is delivered frozen in a serum vial. So anybody who is licensed to do an injection will be able to use the product. If you think of Botox, it'll probably start with dermatologists, both those that are involved with hair transplants currently, as well as a dermatologist involved in the various aesthetic medicine practices. But I think it's going to quickly move to the plastic surgery arena, and then to even general medical practice, because it is a very simple injection.
Awesome. What is the injection method like, actually? Is it kind of like a mesogun, or is it like a syringe?
So we have looked at a variety of ways including mesoguns. What works the best, actually, is a 31 gauge needle that has a stopper on it that allows the injection to only go 2 millimeters into the scalp. That's the average depth at which the follicle stem cells are found. A doctor can do, Dr. Ziering in his study was been able to deliver 20 to 40 injections in less than 10 minutes. Since it's a 31 gauge needle and doesn't go very deep, it's not a painful procedure. So we have the best retention of the HSC when it's injected by the physician. I think why the physicians are going to like that is they're going to be able to charge for the product as well as for the treatment. And so it'll be a win-win for the physician and the patient.
And a win for consumers. For patients, hair loss occurs. The last question on the list here is: could a treatment from Replicell, dermal sheath cup cell injections, benefit from Histogen in a way where, for example, finasteride supplemented by minoxidil gives great synergy and both just explode with results? So,
I believe so. I mean, I think that if we were looking at HSC as helping to even further rev up the cells that Replicell is delivering, there could be very strong synergistic effects. I'd actually love to speak to them about doing a small trial to see whether or not we can enhance it, because it's just a matter of not just delivering the cells, but then revving the cells up with the growth factors.
I did speak to Dr. Rolf Hoffman about this, and no one's really mentioned on the forums about this, but I have a feeling that this could work greatly together. One is giving the DSC cells, and then just giving a major boost with all the growth factors.
Because we do know, at least in our in vitro studies, that HSC is able to really enhance the proliferation of the various follicle cells in vitro. So it's worth a try.
I definitely go in for both treatments once they're available. So I'm hopeful that it would work greatly. Before we started the discussion, you mentioned earlier that Histogen has modified its protocol. Can you touch on that subject?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you brought this up. People have considered that Histogen has been radio silent for about 3 years, and there's a real reason for this. When we did our first 3 studies, the proof of concept, the phase 1-2, as well as Dr. Ziering's physician-sponsored study, we basically used a concentrated form of everything that the cells were secreting. This included media components that you normally feed the cells. It became apparent to us that this is not a simple product to get regulatory approval for. It is not a single molecule that you can synthesize in the laboratory that you could release based on a chemical analysis. It's a complicated mixture of growth factors, all of which are important to stimulate the stem cells. And so we have spent the last few years to do product improvements. We have taken all bovine and any animal materials out of the manufacturing. So other cell-based products have bovine serum, very often porcine materials. These can increase allergic reaction to people. Some people are intolerant to them, and some people develop an allergy over time with multiple injections. So we wanted to make it safer. But then we developed a methodology to be able to purify just the growth factors out of the HSC preparation. So we don't have any of the quote-unquote impurities that were previously present, and we believe this is going to enhance not just the safety, but very strongly the efficacy of the product. It's going to allow us to actually do this upcoming dosing study in men. In the former HSC, we could only do one dose because we were able to concentrate it so much. Now we're able to, by just having the isolated growth factors, go into this next study looking at the same dose that's been used previously, half the dose, and 3 times the dose. What we've seen with some recent studies, and one of the photographs of a 42-year-old male is going to be part of my presentation today. He had pretty extensive hair loss, male pattern baldness, and with this new enhanced product, he, by week 24, has seen really remarkable hair growth. Under a physician study, we're doing additional patients. We have done additional patients and will continue to do additional patients with this new improved product. And the results we're seeing are very exciting. I mean, we were very happy with our previous clinical trials. The studies, this material is really, really, in both men and women, giving some outstanding results. And so we're really excited. It took time, it took money, people had to be very patient, but I believe that the time was worth it because we really have something that we believe is going to have less hurdles getting through the regulatory approval and provide a more efficacious product to both men and women.
Awesome. I don't know what else to ask. I think that pretty much...
We've covered a lot.
Yes. Actually, we've been chatting for about 40 minutes now. This is excellent news. I think that's it. I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to